amazing to see you, and we're not in the same place, but we're in the same time, right?
Right, for once. Yeah.
All semester long, I've encountered you only through the little pixels on my little laptop. But now
it's weird, isn't it? How many kids are in this class?
27.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So thank you for coming. Thank you so much for coming. I'm first of all, just before we really get started, how are you holding up? What's going on, like, at the emotional level? Like, what is it like being a college student in a pandemic?
I am so I work full time. This is my last class of my college career. It's been a very slow crawl, but this is it for me. So I'm about to wrap that up. I work from home, so everything has kind of been going okay. But then last week, my grandma fell and broke her hip. So now she's in a nursing home and we're trying to get her out of there. But it looks like I'm probably going to have to move in with her and take care of her for a while. So everything is kind of, crappy.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. Hey there, if you just joined us, we're so glad you're here. We're just doing a little, what's it like being a college student during a pandemic? Highlights and lowlights.
It's definitely been stressful. I feel like teachers are giving us a lot more work than usual than when we go to classes and things like that.
Yeah. Right. So you're overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of class participation and lecture has been translated into reading assignments, which is just more time consuming. So it's been a little bit of a stressful semester.
That and a lot more writing assignments because teachers are scared to give actual exams rather than writing. Because a writing assignment, you can't cheat off of what the internet, I think
Right.
teachers know that, and I think that's why they're giving a lot more than just exams.
Right. Maddie, how are you doing in a pandemic?
I think it's a lot harder to learn over the internet. I'm doing pretty well in most of my classes, but I have this one class where it's only pop quizzes and exams. Those are our only grades, and that class is killing my GPA right now. So I don't know, I've talked to my professor and everybody's not doing well. So I guess he's giving extra credit, but I'm hoping that, I don't know, it helps a little bit. But
Right. Pop quizzes and exams. That's not a fun way to learn. No. And Frankie, how are you doing going to school? You guys are going to be able to tell your grandchildren, I went to college during the great pandemic of 2020. How are you experiencing learning during a pandemic?
I think the hardest part is probably just motivation. All my classes are online and I'm working from home and I live at home. So I'm just why would I get up early and do my work? And there's a pandemic. So that's tough. Also, like Maddie said, I have a teacher who she'll assign the readings and then maybe post the lecture, maybe not. And I just feel I benefit so much from the supplemental part of it and digesting it. So it's I just find it on my own online and YouTube videos, but it's just annoying because I'm what am I paying for?
Great point. That is a very reasonable way to feel. Jeff and Tolu, how are you holding up learning and going to college during the pandemic? What are your highlights and lowlights of this crazy, impossible time?
I think for me, it's more there's a lot of professors who give group works, and it's just, why give group work when we're doing online? Everybody has different times that they can meet, and there's just this one class, every work in that class is surrounded around group work, and our group has just not met at all this semester. Everybody has just tuned out. So I'm still trying to figure out how that's going to work since the semester's coming to an end. But some of my professors have been really nice. They've been really understanding about online classes and all of that. So I'm grateful for those professors.
Yeah, we are learning alongside you. That is for sure. Jeff, how's your experience of learning during the pandemic been?
Pretty solid. I think it's been kind of hard with a lot of professors' availability, not being on the same time schedule. I don't know if anybody said that already, but kind of, yeah, that's kind of the biggest issue I've had is professors expecting you to do stuff on their time schedule and not being available on, like, I guess a more open one, and then just like giving you a lot of stuff and saying basically go figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a real challenge. One thing that I am, experiencing is I spend most of my life on Zoom meetings, right? Meetings, Zoom meetings. But this semester, I never encountered you guys on a Zoom meeting, right? And so I'm getting to the end of the semester going, damn, I feel like I know you through your writing and your creative work and your contributions to the discussion. I feel like I know you pretty well, but I feel like I wouldn't want to be here in downtown Newport next semester and walk right by you because I never saw you in 3 dimensions. Like that would be really bad, right? And you never saw me in 3 dimensions, right? So I felt like, okay, we have to do a Zoom meeting. So at least I will be able to like spot you off of a lineup, right? Like, yeah, she's my amazing student. That's right, she's the one. Okay, so I feel like the place that I want to start, at least the place that's most important to me, is to help you guys appreciate that the struggle of this pandemic has been a gigantic emotional one, right? It really has. And so every part of learning doesn't just happen in the head, right? Learning also happens in the heart and in the spirit and in your hands. And every part of learning has been crazy hard this semester. And so if you're an experienced Zoomer, and even if you're not, roll your cursor up to the top of the page, click that button and annotate the screen with me, right? Select a stamp or draw and capture, if you will, where are you at in the crazy emotions? Yeah, so if you roll up to the top to that green bar and you click on it, you can get to the Annotate tool. And right now, today, because I'm actually seeing you face to face, I'm feeling kind of happy. So I'm just using the annotation tool to mark happy. But at the same time, this has really been a challenging semester. And I feel like, ironically, I'm also kind of, I'm kind of depressed. So let's own up to the fact that if you're a human being, you've got emotions all over the map, so to speak. And why don't you use the mood meter and give me a sense of where you're at? I see tired, drained. Yeah, that's a normal feeling. Nervous, that's a fairly normal feeling to be feeling at this moment in time. I see a star on focused. Bravo for feeling focused. And uneasy, that is a reasonable place to be feeling. Stressed, how could you not? As we come to this end of the semester, worried, that's reasonable. Miserable is a rotten feeling, but I must admit, the news has been putting me in a miserable mood right now because of my sense of unpredictability about the future. And I can really share that feeling as well. So thank you so much for sharing your feelings. It's really okay to feel whatever we're feeling right now. Whatever we're feeling right now is like an okay thing to feel. And it's really, it's almost something we'll want to remember these feelings because, because this is a really unique time in history. Like it's friggin' like wild how strange it is. So here you have been enrolled in propaganda, and there's a lot of things that I feel like because we are doing this online and asynchronously, without even Zoom meetings. There's a lot of things that I feel like I wished I could tell you in person, but I can't, so now I will, right? This is my agenda for the time we have just 1 hour together. So I thought I want you guys to know that I have really been super impressed with this class. And actually, if you are if you are following my Twitter streams, right? If you are following my Twitter streams, you know that I've been bragging about you kind of like all semester. And just yesterday, I had the chance to work with about 60 German high school teachers, to introduce German high school teachers to teaching about propaganda, because guess what? What do you think? What part of propaganda do you think German high school teachers focus on? Well, it's the Nazi era. That's all they teach. And it's like, wait a minute, you guys are in the 21st century, you're teaching 21st century German students, and all you're teaching is the Third Reich? You got to fix that, right? And so I shared with the German teachers what you guys are doing. And there's a good example of it. See all the amazing remix responses of COM416 students as they read Dana Goldstein's wonderful New York Times story on textbook propaganda and explored reader comments. And then I make a link to your page so they can see all of them, right? So people can scroll through the whole deck, right? See all of those great works. But then, weirdly, this activity seems to be super useful even for me, right? And I want to I want to share with you how you did on that has had a big influence on me. And I think the best way to explain that is just to share with you this tweet. I guess I do use the tweeting as a diary kind of what, there's like the thank you from the German teachers. What are my current favorite lesson plans? Right here. Reading the comments of a news story is a great way to develop news literacy and media literacy competencies. Check out this comment about the Washington Post article on a State Department holiday event. Then discuss, does the photo's date matter? Why or why not? So here's the thing. It crossed my reading yesterday. I'm a news junkie, I'll admit it. It says, dismissing health concerns, State Department treats 200 guests to holiday drinks and tours and leftover Be Best swag? That's a PR term, right? I saw this and I looked at the picture and I went, holy shit, they're all standing really close together. They all have no masks. What the heck? This looks dangerous. But then, because I read the reader comments, I saw this from Darla Girl. Worthy article, but the Post should not have used a photo from 2019. That is Fox News-like, purposefully misleading. Now, you know what? I'm a media literacy expert, and I didn't read the cut line of the article where it does say it's from 2019. And it started making me realize that, you know what? Here I am with you guys reaching the end of the semester. And I can't say that you are immune from propaganda's influence, because you know what? I'm not immune from propaganda's influence, right? And so I'm not sure anybody can be immune from propaganda's influence. But in some ways, I now see how easy it is for me to be misled. I'm really hyper aware now. I'm vigilant. And I guess if the only thing that happened in this class is that you gained the competence of vigilance, That's probably enough. I'm okay with that, right? That might be enough. That might be enough. Okay, so that's my thank you. If you scroll back in the Twitter stream, you'll see I've been on a couple because I'm promoting the book, right? I'm promoting the book, so I'm on a bunch of podcasts, and in every podcast I say, let me tell you about my COM416 students. And I tell stories about what you said in the threaded discussion, the propaganda you created at the beginning of the semester, those incredible videos you made to analyze. I'm telling anybody who will listen about the amazing work you did, and yet you guys haven't heard any of that. So just saying, want to let you know I've been so impressed with your work. Okay, here's an activity. Let's take 3 minutes and do this. Go to the path right. Get to this page, the time to reflect page. You know where that is. It's in the propaganda rhetorics. So just recreate the steps, go down to propaganda rhetorics. I want you to take a look at where you were at the beginning of the semester. And it's really hard to remember the beginning of the semester. It seems like 1 billion years ago, right? But if you click on this link, you get to where you started. This was the first video that you did to introduce yourself to me. What I'd like you to do is take 2 minutes or 3 minutes, however long it is, and I would like you to watch it. I'd like you to watch your own video now. And I'd like you to, as you watch it, be thinking about, where was I then in my thinking about propaganda? And then we're going to discuss, where are you now? Give me a thumbs up if you understand this task. The task is to rewatch your video. It looks like everybody has a good understanding of this. While you watch this, I'm going to ask you to turn off your camera and turn off your microphone, because that will, so then we won't be distracted. And then when you're done watching, come back. Where were you then when you started your journey, and where are you now? What'd you notice?
I was just very quickly reminded about how much anxiety I had leading up to the election over the past 3 months or so. And I think it was really interesting and actually it was a little bit anxiety inducing, I'll say, to take this class during this very peculiar time in our history. And not just looking at propaganda, Nazi propaganda as like something in the past, but like literally watching it unfold on TV and everything you read on social media, and just being like completely inundated with it as we're learning about it. It was, honestly, I will say, like, there are sometimes, like, at the end of like sitting down and doing a couple hours of work, that it was just like, oh my God, like everything is just as bad as I thought it was, maybe even worse. So I think there's a little bit of relief now in some capacity, and I think a lot of hope for 2021. But I will say that I think it was an emotionally stressful semester, but I learned so much. I wish I could share a lot of that knowledge with my in-laws and some other people.
Thank you for sharing. Who's next?
Yeah, I would partially echo that. Even before the semester started, I was really nervous to be taking this course. In fact, I dropped a couple other courses because my course load this semester was reflecting too much of the world around us. And I knew that was going to be daunting. So I would say that too. And I think also just from the tone of my video, I think I sort of had this like, okay, propaganda is really interesting if you want to pay attention to it. And now I realize that if you're not paying attention to it, it's working, I guess. That's part of how I feel.
Thanks for sharing. Frankie, what'd you notice about where you were then and where you are now?
I feel like I just didn't even say a lot in my first video. I think I was really nervous about, like, my anxiety was like, I don't know who else is in the class. I don't want to post a video where I can be perceived and not know who's perceiving me. So I think it's interesting because I've noticed, like, in my Flipgrids, like, I've gotten I actually focus on the question and like get my point across, and I'm running out of time and I care about the content. But in the first one, I was just like, how do I fill up a minute while giving the least information about myself as possible?
What a great observation. Over time, you got more comfortable with the Flipgrid format, but in the beginning, it was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Nicely point. There's a vulnerability to Flipgrid that is you were experiencing then. Thanks for sharing. Maddie, what did you notice about your first Flipgrid, and where were you then and where are you now?
I just feel like watching it, like I know where I was then, and I feel like I lacked so much knowledge that I have now. Like I feel like now, honestly, like I'm very into politics and I always have been, and I took this class combined with like a race, media, and gender class this semester. So I feel like those two classes together, like I've always been political, but I've learned so much more that I think I'm just like a different person and like more passionate even now.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing. Gavin, what'd you notice about your first post compared to where you are now?
I noticed how so when I did that post, the last time I was really like doing something for class was like back in March. So it was really weird like doing that post, and I was like I'm just coming off like I don't know, I didn't really know what to say. I didn't really have a lot to say, but now I do. So
thanks for sharing. Jeff, Tolu, what do you notice about where you were then and where you are now?
So in my first video, I kind of talked about propaganda being in like government and wanting to know more about propaganda from the government and propaganda used during war. And I thought that was really interesting because I'm talking about that in my paper for the LEAP. So it did come full circle for me, which is kind of interesting.
Nice point. So you're deepening your interest in government propaganda, and that's kind of been something you've been able to develop some expertise on in this course. Good point. Tolu, what'd you notice watching your video from back then and thinking about where you are now?
Okay, so I rewatched my video and I noticed I had a lot of questions regarding propaganda and why we like believe into it so easily. And after taking the class, I realized that it's not as easy, even as a communications major, it's not as easy to identify bias, especially if it's presented to us in like such a factual way. So going through this class, I realized that, every day we fall into bias opinions that we might think it's fact, but then we just have to like check the source, like see where they're coming from, and also check other source to see if it's like the same story that it's being put out.
Great observation. It's really true. We just like with that Washington Post picture, like it's all around us, and that we have some strategies, but it's going to be part of our life for absolute ever. Okay, so then the next activity I thought would really be kind of fun to do is to take a look. You guys don't know this, I don't think, but before this book about propaganda, I wrote a book called Create to Learn. And Create to Learn was a book about how students learn best when they create media, which is why I asked you to create so much media, right? And you did. You created quite a lot of media. And I thought for this, on this page, to put it all in one page to make it easily findable. And actually, I was kind of overwhelmed when I put it all together. I was like, yes, I am guilty. I'm one of those professors who made you do way too much this semester. I'll admit it. But you creatively learned by making media, right? And so this one was your first Flipgrid comment. And then remember how you commented on advertising history, and I linked to that. Of course, your first Leap 1, you guys were propagandists, right? And that was amazing. And then you made a Flipgrid comment on Nazi propaganda before you watched Forbidden Films. Worked with a partner to analyze personalized propaganda you encounter online. I don't know if you guys even remember this, but this was your first Google slide deck where you had to look at propaganda on your social media feed. Do you remember that? So that was a really interesting way for me to get to know you better, and for you to reflect on the way propaganda comes to you through entertainment, advertising, and information. You guys annotated Eddie Bernays. And in that first section of the course, we were really getting at understanding propaganda at the intersection of information and entertainment, thinking about how it activates strong emotion, thinking about how it's baked in to the economic structure of society, and how it really benefits from people's willingness to attack opponents, and thinking about the technologies that are now making propaganda even more powerful and effective, right? By reaching people in a micro-targeted way, right? In that news and information section, I asked you to create a whole bunch of things. You guys watched some popular movies to try to spot the propaganda. You created a political meme. Oh my God, the creativity here, right? Really great examples of using your creativity to create propaganda and use the power of the meme. And you examined some news coverage of what was going on this semester. In addition to the election, was all this talk about how should social media be regulated, and we're seeing that still play out in the news. And you learned a little bit more about the regulation strategies of government regulation or industry self-regulation, right? So that got us to learn about partisanship and lies and attack ads. And you know, in this section of the course, I really struggled. Should we explicitly look at any harmful propaganda? And I really wrestled with that this semester. I didn't want to infect you with harmful propaganda, but sometimes we had to look at it, didn't we? So then in the third part of the course, this topic of propaganda and identity, you dug into conspiracy theories. You made these exceeded my expectations so much. It was really a thrill to see how you demonstrated your synthesis skills by building these screencasts where you took a single example and you really unpacked it. I was so impressed with that. What was this one? I can't even remember. What did you make here? Oh yeah. This is where you had to, this was scary. This was scary because you guys found so many different kinds of vigilante violence and propaganda. I mean, it was like, I learned a lot from this because you discovered some really interesting forms of extremist propaganda. And that was incredible. And then let me just talk about this. I think I gave you a little task to go track down old PSAs. And I think I said that I would give a $20 Amazon gift certificate to the student who came up with the best example. And I realized that I did make my choice. I watched all these, they were amazing. And I made my choice, but I want to show you my choice on the big screen because it's so good. I mean, all of them were good. Many of them were good, but this one just, I found myself thinking about this one for days. So let's watch it, shall we?
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them. Beat them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad
One more
today.
time. Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys.
For so many reasons. And really the only reason I can be hopeful is when I think about the positive power of propaganda, right? The positive power of propaganda is pretty much the only thing that's keeping me going right now. And so while we're talking about the power, the positive power, so who wins? Ciara Chabot. I think the gift certificate is in the email. Ciara, you probably want to be watching this as a recording. I'm going to post this recording. So yeah, for sure. I guess I'll wait till the very end to show you my favorite propaganda of all time. We'll go out on that propaganda. But I thought it would be useful for you guys to do something kind of fun with the Jamboard. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever used a Jamboard before. Who's used a Jamboard before as a fun group discussion activity? Okay, so I'm gonna break you into two groups. I'm gonna invite you to go to this website. You guys saw how I clicked on it, right? But I'll also put it in the, I'll put it in the chat. Let me just put it in the chat right here. Jamboard is a Google product most people haven't heard of, but it's super, super good for collaboration and for dialogue, and it's like so easy to use. And in my Zoom teaching, I use it all the time, so I'm using it again today. So get yourself to the Zoom Jamboard and give me a thumbs up once you're there. Yep. Okay. So we're going to break into two groups of four. It's going to work something like this. Oops. Ooh, hold on. I gotta reshare my screen with you. In your small group, I'm going to ask you to brainstorm and dialogue this, the answer to these questions. What new ideas, surprises, and paradoxes were presented, revealed, or discovered? This is a simple tool to use. You can drag over here and you can drag here and just start typing. Okay, that's not very good typing, I'll admit. Or you can add a sticky note here, and save it, and then you can make it a different color, or you can make it a different size. The four of you are going to be on a timed task to answer questions to that, okay? And the group one, I've kind of messed that one up already. So we'll invite you to choose to be group 2 or group 3. And when I break you up into two groups, I'm going to tell you who's who. Here we go. I'll assign 7 participants into 2 groups, 2 rooms. There we go. Create breakout rooms. Catherine, Elizabeth, Frankie, and Madeline, you guys are going to work on that page that says group 2. And Gavin, Jeffrey, and Tolu, you're going to work on group 4. All right, give me a thumbs up. You're going to I'm literally giving you 5 minutes of discussion. And maybe you're not really even, maybe you're discussing, but maybe you're talking and somebody else is writing down what you say. That's a good way to do it, right? So rather than you guys sit in silence, talk and somebody else will write your idea down. Talk and somebody else will write your idea down. So thumbs up, we get the concept. We're going to just try to generate 3 or 4 of the big ahas. Open all rooms. There you go. Go into the small group breakout room. I'll see you back in about six minutes or so. You made some good progress there. But now we're going to do just one more 5-minute round, but this time we're going to do it as a large group, okay? So let me share my screen with you. So in the small groups, you flushed out a lot of really interesting ideas, right? And reminded me about the interesting things like the American Sniper thing and the COVID craziness, right? And this issue of intentionality. What a great observation. Boy, that is a big topic. In let's see if I can move forward here in the next group. This idea about textbook propaganda. Whew, man, was that freaky. And basically the idea that a lot of propaganda comes from the government and corporations, right? And of course, Noam Chomsky told us that back in the 1980s, right? That's where the confederation of government and industry was really a very potentially very dangerous for citizens. And then the whole idea of propaganda as terrorism as propaganda, really an important issue, and how we understand that really depends on how we ourselves are situated. Like, so we don't stand outside of the propaganda universe, like we're implicated in it. Now, let's work as a large group together to have a discussion about how can you use what you learned, and what do you want to remember? And, oh, this one goes, hold on. And next one, what new questions still remain unanswered? We'll take 5 minutes. Choose your poison. Do you want to talk about what new questions remain unanswered? What do you want to remember? How can you use what you learned? Who wants to go first?
I think one way that I have already, and I hopefully will continue to use what we've learned, is just through conversations with people I know. I've had a couple of conversations where I didn't argue with their point of view, but I was able to point out from like an educated perspective that what they were seeing was propaganda, or it didn't have the right source. And I guess I feel like I was more effectively able to explain to them how there may be some faulty thinking involved.
Sweet. I captured it as best I could. Who's next? Which of these 3 questions do you want to talk about?
For what we can remember for the next question. Like I would say that we should really take everything with a grain of salt, and we should use our brains when people are trying to convey conspiracy theories and like harmful propaganda to us. Like, I think we should really step back and take a minute and like think about what is actually being told to us.
Nice. Thanks for sharing. Who's next? That's something you want to remember way beyond this class. Oh, maybe use your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
For questions that still remain unanswered, I would say how, as in the digital era, and fake news being one of like the more harmful forms of propaganda, what responsibility do social media platforms have to control the spread of it? Do they have any responsibility? And if so, how do they do that while straddling, First Amendment?
Yeah, nice. I guess spelling propaganda is always my big challenge. Propaganda, while protecting freedom of expression. Yeah, that's the question of the hour. Great. Thanks for pointing that out. That is still unanswered. Who's next?
For the question, how can you use what you learned? So I eventually, like, hopefully, unless I own my own business, I want to be a politician. So, like, all the things I've learned, especially like how politicians use propaganda, I think it would be very helpful for like my platform as I grow older, and like how I could use propaganda to like grab in my audience that I want to like gain, like who I want to gains attention, and like really what I want to spread and how I want to educate people, and also like learning about like indoctrination versus like education. I want to kind of eliminate that, especially like in the textbooks in the South when we learned about that. I want to really make education like number one, so that, because I think indoctrination really affects like how our country, like I think it affects a proper democracy, and I think it just makes people hateful. Like if they learn to hate, like they're going to hate, and I think eliminating indoctrination will, you know, at least lessen the hate, if not completely eliminate it. So
Boy, that is inspiring. I would vote for you, girl. Thank you for sharing. Who's next?
Can you go back to the one we were just on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not as political and noble. I've been involved at points in my life with like internet creation and like meme making and like viral joke tweets and stuff. Please don't look for anything I've done. And I think it's just sort of really interesting. I was talking about intentionality in the breakout groups, and just like knowing that like there's just always going to be people who are going to take like your content the wrong way, and like and just sort of understanding that you can still put things out, like you just have to think about your intentionality and the propaganda effects, and like, you know, maybe to you and to your audience that this is a total joke, but like you have to understand that you have to put things out, like you may be influencing someone in a way that you don't even want to, because you're thinking that you're doing something ironic.
Whoa, freaking profound. Yeah. Even if you were intending it to be ironic, it can be misinterpreted as hate speech. It could be misinterpreted as humiliating someone. It could, yeah. But that shouldn't, I love the point though, Frankie, that shouldn't paralyze you. That shouldn't silence you.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I've tweeted a lot about like ironic stuff where I'm like, women don't deserve rights, and it's a joke to me, and then people will be like, you're right, followed, and I'm like, no. I'm like, I didn't mean it.
Oh my God, that is great. I hope you write about that in Leap 3. That's wonderful. Do you have anything else you want to add as you start thinking about this? Because this is as a pre-writing activity, this format is kind of useful. Like, yes, it would be cool to end an essay with your top 5 ideas. How could you use what you learned? What do you want to remember? And what, I mean, in a way, this could be helpful to you. Is there anything else you want to put on this chart before we move on? All right, cool. That's all. I get it. We got the concept. I think Jamboard is a really fun tool for capturing ideas in a shorthand way that we can all reflect on. We have 3 minutes for questions and answers on Leap 3 and the final exam. Yeah. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
So I'm already like 6 pages into my Leap 3, and I'm gonna probably send it to you just so you can like look over it, whatever. And I'm hoping I did it right, but I started like talking to other people in the class, and like I think they interpreted it differently from me. So like what I did was I looked at the glossary and picked out like some of like my like terms that are like important to me. So like the terms that I picked were like all political, and I got into like how they have affected like positively and negatively the country, like how they've either like backtracked or like moved us forward, and then I'm like ending it with how I want to be a politician and stuff. Like, is that okay?
So that sounds like a very creative strategy.
Yeah.
In the first page,
Mm-hmm.
explain your creative strategy and defend it.
Okay.
I'm using this strategy because reason.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Sounds cool to me.
Thank you.
What questions do you have about Leap 3 or the final exam?
For the final, is it what should we be expecting for the final? Like,
Same format as with the midterm, right? So there'll be 10 questions. They'll be mostly short answer. They'll be mostly focused on the second half of the semester since we had the midterm. Because why would I ask you questions about the stuff from the beginning of the semester, since this final exam is not, it is mostly for the second half of the semester. So you remember the questions from the midterm.
To be honest with you, you just made me so nervous. I completely forgot we even had a midterm, and I do remember now. You made me so, I was like, oh, wait, there was a midterm.
Here's the thing to remember about the midterm. It's an open book, open note test. So God damn it, open up the book, open up the notes, go into the path right. Remind yourself what you wrote. Some of the threaded discussion shit that you guys wrote in the threaded discussion could be usefully used in the final exam, right? So feel free to like take your time. So people think exam, they think, oh, okay, it should take about an hour. I'll devote an hour to it. It's like, no, probably block out 2 hours over 2 periods. Once to get a sense of like, okay, here are the 10 questions I should, and be strategic. I'll talk about this for this question I have, make an outline, then write. But you know, it's a
paragraph.
Mostly the second half of the semester. So you can think about focusing that way. What other questions do you have about Leap 3 or the final exam?
I just had a technical question for Leap 3. If we're talking about, like say I'm referencing my Leap 2, do you want us to like use the same citation? So all the citations I have for my Leap 2, do you want me to just like copy those over for the Leap 3?
Absolutely, and or you can use hyperlinks as an alternative citation strategy.
Okay.
So yes, absolutely. Since sometimes you're going to be referring to your Leap 2, yeah, reuse those sources and or hyperlink to show me the citation.
Okay.
Good question. Anything else?
Oh.
Yeah, Gavin.
So sometimes we like just put information on like the PathRight modules or whatever their pages. How do we cite those in the paper?
So that is a really interesting question. How do you cite your own writing?
Yeah, no, I meant like yours.
How do you cite the stuff that's on the PathRight?
Yeah, I just like from
COM416, fall 2020.
Okay.
So everything that's on the PathRight, that doesn't have by somebody else. Now, of course, remember when we read that one essay by, sometimes I put the citation, but if there's no citation on the page, then it's I authored it. So then you can just say the author is Hobbs, COM416, fall 2020, and cite it that way. Great question. What other questions do you have?
I just had like a question about the actual paper itself. So there's not, so like I'm finding that like it's more just like about what we're learning. So do you want us to like really go deep into like concepts and things like that?
Well,
like
go ahead. Keep
like so like for instance, like right now I'm still writing my paper. So like right now I'm writing about like Nazi propaganda, and I'm just kind of reflecting on like what like the Nazis did and stuff like that, and then I'm going to be talking about like why it's memorable to me and like why it's important to me.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
All right.
So you're definitely getting the concept that in this thing, it's a personal essay, right? So your job is like, why does this matter? If by the end of reading this thing, I know, wow, I know why Nazi propaganda really, and the insights that we had that the week we studied it carefully, why that's meaningful to you, that's the idea.
Okay.
So you're not teaching me anything new in this essay. You're explaining why it matters to you.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, but like at the same time, I'm telling you like what I learned about the Nazi propaganda and then why it mattered. Okay. All right.
Because you have to do both parts. I like that, Gavin. That's a great way for people who are who are watching this call as a recording. That's a really nice thing. If you just say why it matters to you, but I don't know what you're talking about, that's no good. But I think, okay, you learned this, X, Y, and Z, and here's why it matters. You learned A, B, and C, and this is why it matters. That's a cool way to think about how you have to tell me what you learned, and then you have to explain why it's interesting. Not just interesting, but interesting, troubling, important, or challenging, right? So you definitely have to summarize and synthesize ideas, but then I really want you to know, like, what's your, why does that matter to you? Yeah, that was a great question. I think that clarified for a lot of people ways to think about how to structure their work. So thanks for asking that good question.
No problem.
Have another question? Okay, I'm ready to show you my most influential propaganda of all time. This propaganda changed my life. I actually, someday I'm going to write about this propaganda because writing this book took a long time, and I experienced a lot of despair writing this book because I couldn't find that many teachers who were teaching about propaganda the way I think propaganda should be taught. I tried to find them. I found as many as I could, but it was like, holy shit, there's 75 million people in school and not very many people are learning about propaganda. And I had great feelings of despair. And what got me out of the despair was seeing what beneficial propaganda, how transformative beneficial propaganda can be. And it made me feel hopeful about the possibility of propaganda to be part of the solution. So it's been part of the problem, but I really, really think propaganda is part of the solution. And so I share with you my favorite propaganda of all time. And of course I put it on the propaganda website, right? Of course I did. But why don't we look at it?
It's easy to put people in boxes. There's us, and there's them. The high earners, and those just getting by. Those we trust, and those we try to avoid. There's the new Danes, and those who've always been here. The people from the countryside, and those who've never seen a cow. The religious, and the self-confident. There are those we share something with, and those we don't share anything with.
Velkommen. Jeg kommer til at stille jer nogle spørgsmål i dag.
It's in
Nogle af dem
Danish.
kan godt være lidt personlige, men jeg håber, I vil svare ærligt på dem. Hvem herinde i rummet var klassens klovn? Hvem er bonusforældre?
And then suddenly, there's us. We who believe in life after death. We who've seen UFOs. And all of us who love to dance. We who've been bullied. And we who've bullied others. And then there's us, the lucky ones who've had sex this past week. We who are broken-hearted. We who are madly in love. We who feel lonely. We who are bisexual, and we who acknowledge the courage of others. We who have found the meaning of life, and we who have saved lives. And then there's all of us who just love Denmark. So maybe there's more that brings us together than we think. TV2 Denmark, all that we share.
Whoa. So, created by a TV production company in Denmark. There's a really long comment thread about this piece of propaganda because it's damn complicated. But in my opinion, it never gets old. That is a really damn inspiring piece of propaganda. I wish you all the ability to experience the power of being a positive propagandist. Go forth and be a positive propagandist and protect people from the worst of it. All right, we'll wave goodbye. Love it. Thank you so much for being part of this. Let's keep talking about propaganda on Twitter, shall we? All right, see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.